Ai, kabisa.
Mimi niko sawa.
Nataka nini mama?
We are still keen on Germany's DFB Pokal as the quarterfinals is around the corner. In football, it is easy to be intimidated by the top flight teams, but as fate would have it, new entrants do sometimes turn the tables with their patience, perseverance and self-belief.
Borussia Dortmund are out of the competition. St. Pauli take all the spoils.
It is therefore a tight affair this Tuesday, 1st of March 2022 at 10:45 p.m. in a match pitting Union Berlin against FC St. Pauli. Watch this spectacular duel live and exclusive on KBC Channel 1. KBC, your true sports partner.
Among them, the coffee bill. This is a Senate bill number 22 of 2020. The Uduma bill, National Assembly bill number 57 of 2021. Other bills which have been lined up for debate in the second reading stage are the Children's Bill, National Assembly bill number 38 of 2021. The National Electronic Single Window System bill, National Assembly bills number 15 of 2021. The Advocates Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 43 of 2021. This bill is by the Departmental Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs. There will be two petitions which will be presented before the National Assembly this afternoon. The first petition is on reclamation of arid and semi-arid lands. This petition will be presented by the Honorable Speaker on behalf of Mr. Benjamin Liru Shirina of Tarbo, and the bill will be delegated to the Departmental Committee on Lands. The persistent harassment and unlawful eviction of residents of Kuruwitu village in Junju Ward of Kilifi South constituency is a petition which will be presented by the Honorable Member Kitty Chonga, the Kilifi South Member of Parliament, on behalf of the residents of Kuruwitu village of Junju Ward. That petition will be subjected to the Departmental Committee on Lands. A number of members of Parliament will be asking various questions this afternoon as well. One, the member for Nakuru Town East, Honorable David Gikaria, will ask the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works to explain why the Kenya National Highways Authority, KENHA, has stopped public service vehicles from using the bus stop commonly referred to as Gaite Guru Stop, located near the Nakuru Town footbridge along the Nakuru-Nairobi Highway, despite it being a recognized stop. And also, could the Cabinet Secretary consider removing the blockades and reopen the said bus stop? The question by the Honourable Member for Nakuru Town East will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. If you're just joining us, the business of the National Assembly on this first day of March 2022 is about to commence. There is some activity at the door signaling the arrival of the presiding speaker this afternoon. There, approaching the door, is the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Justin Muturi. I will now hand you over for this live broadcast of the National Assembly proceedings. The broadcast has been made available to you courtesy of the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Just a quick reminder, the broadcast is available on the go on YouTube courtesy of the Parliament of Kenya YouTube channel. Enjoy your viewing.
Tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umeteua nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu, twakusihi ututazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao umerithika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri yetu. Twakuomba ututeremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na tujalie tuyatende na kuyafikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amina.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Order members, order members. Honorable Kutuni, what did you do? Can you go back? Not when I'm on the chair. It not happen. Yeah, now you look like the member for Cherangani, yes? Proceed.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Honour members, in terms of Standing Order 225, paragraph 2, paragraph B, and in accordance also with Article 119 of the Constitution, I wish to inform the House that I'm in receipt of a petition from one Benjamin Eliru Shifina, of PO Box 293, Tarbo, calling for the establishment of a special fund and enactment of appropriate legislation to facilitate reclamation of arid and semi-arid land in historically marginalized counties. In his petition, honourable members, the petitioner voices his concerns regarding the huge concentration of people in regions that are traditionally the country's food basket, which constitutes less than 20% of the total land mass. He cites the high population density in agriculturally productive areas, the continuous subdivision of farmlands, and the skyrocketing rate of urbanization as a prime cause of food production shortfalls in the country. The petitioner is further convinced that it will have become necessary by the year 2040 to relocate people from densely populated agricultural land counties to the sparsely populated counties to enable a sustainable number of people to focus on intense food production in arable lands. In light of these concerns from our members, the petitioner seeks the intervention of this House to 1. Establish a special fund to facilitate aggressive reclamation of arid and semi-arid lands in historically marginalized counties over a period of 50 years. 2. Enact legislation aimed at attracting local investors and communities to migrate to the reclaimed lands so as to reduce pressure on arable lands. And 3. Enact legislation to reserve the development and extraction of oil and gas in Lamu, Mandera, and Ansa basins for future generations. Our members, having determined that the matters raised by the petitioner are well within the authority of this House, I want to direct that pursuant to Professional Standing Order 227.1, this petition be committed to the Departmental Committee on Lands. The committee is required to consider the petition and report its findings to the House and to the petitioner in accordance with Standing Order 227, subsection 2. There is also a petition to be presented by the member for Kilifi South, Honorable Chonga. Petition by the Honorable Kitty Chonga, member for Kilifi South. Member and requesting to be allowed to present a petition regarding persistent harassment and unlawful eviction of residents of Kurumuitu village of Juju Ward in Kilifi South constituency. Member having chosen to be absent, that request for the petition is dropped for today. Proceed for comments. Member for all the members who have pressed interventions desirous of commenting on the petition have just presented. Honorable Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the distribution of special funds has really been a challenge despite having been set up by the 2010 Constitution. And one of the requests is to make an arable land which is not arable. And there has been an effort by the government of Kenya, for example, now the Thwake Dam, which will create alternative food basket in Makueni, Kitui, Machakos, and Kajiado. And there is the Grand Force Dam, which is proposed to be done in Tharaka, and I'm sure will take water to the northern part of Ukambani and part of northeastern and the Tharaka itself. Mr. Speaker, some of these initiatives are slow to implement, and it is part of what is causing the problem. I believe such other projects should be done in strategically placed places in Kenya, and will definitely move people from areas of high concentration to land which is arable, Mr. Speaker, and where big agricultural production is likely to take place, just like the Hoover Dam in Las Vegas, which created which made a desert become a big town and become a big agricultural area. I support the petition, Mr. Speaker. It is good these special funds be utilized in a proper manner. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. I can see the member trying to come. Don't plead with me. Having made a decision to drop the petition, just go back. Honorable Chonga, tomorrow is a good day. I hope you'll find time to come here at 9:30. Yes. Comments are limited to 2 minutes. Members. Honorable Sankok.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and I do support the petitioner, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, surely the arable lands we are not utilizing, and they are very fertile land, and we are lucky as a country that we have water that we can easily manage to channel it to lower lands using gravity, Honorable Speaker. There is water in Mount Kenya, there is water in Aberdare Ranges or Mao Ranges, there is water in Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Elgon, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we can easily channel this water using these special funds downhill using gravity. But because the government sometimes is not committed to make sure that we assist those who are in arid and semi-arid lands, which is mostly 80% of the landmass of Kenya occupied by the pastoralists, Honorable Speaker. That is why we are not seeing us tapping on this very important resource that God have given us, water that we can easily channel downhills using gravity without using any force. And we only have 247,000 kilometers of government road, whether tarmac or non-tarmac. So having pipes, PVC pipes, along these roads will be very easy, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, lastly, according to what is happening in the political sphere, I wish you all the best, Honorable Speaker, and I'm sure even Manzo had spoken and Kalonzo may join you. Make him his running mate so that we can move forward, Honorable Speaker. You are the best presidential candidate. I do support, Honorable Speaker, the petition.
Honorable Undo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to support the petition insofar as there's a call to create a special fund to make the dry lands arable for agricultural purposes. However, Honorable Speaker, Article 39 and Article 40 of the Constitution is expressly clear that any attempt to encourage or use any legislative means to move people from one region to another so that to decongest one region might be unconstitutional. Second, Honorable Speaker, the right to property is enshrined in the Constitution and is a basic human right. Therefore, any attempt to encourage or to force people to even desist them from subdividing their land is obviously going to be challenged. But, Honorable Speaker, it's obviously true that this country has got a lot of parcels of land, endless kilometers of land that can be put into arable use with irrigation. But, Honorable Speaker, with our endemic corruption, where even money meant for irrigation purposes is stolen, we have a long way to go. We do hope the petition will address those issues so that we go back to the right path. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Dawood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Although I wanted to speak to the next one, but even this one, Mr. Speaker, I don't know how we are going to get the funds for what the petitioner has said, because, Mr. Speaker, we have the equalization fund as well, which for the past 7 years has not even worked because has not been disbursed, regulations are not there. So, Mr. Speaker, getting people into enclaves so that they move out of arable good land, which is for farming. I think it is very difficult to take people away from where they normally stay. And Mr. Speaker, that is a tall order. So I do not support this petition because we have to be practical. Some things cannot be done just for the sake of doing it because there is no money for that. And equalization fund needs to come out, go to each and every area which is facing hardship. So, Mr. Speaker, I do not support this petition.
Member for Bondo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think, Mr. Speaker, some of us are misconstruing the whole idea that was brought by the petitioner. The petitioner acknowledged that there's a lot of pressure in the potential areas, what he was calling the arable lands. But he's also acknowledging that there's a lot of space that is outside there in semi and arid areas. So he's trying to encourage, if there are investments that can go into those arid and semi-arid lands, then it will ease the pressure that is in the potential areas. And I think it's not an idea that you want to move communities like maybe Dr. Undo is proposing or Dawood is proposing. The whole idea is these are things that are going to happen naturally. People are moved towards Kitale, people are moved to these potential areas by their own choice. Nobody moved them. But now we are saying, because there are potential areas, can we make the other areas also to be potential such that people move out of their own volition, not that they are moved by some kind of a scheme. Mr. Speaker, Wajir is in one of those potential, those areas that has the potential. I know, you know, in Wajir, you are not even allowed by public law that you cannot do a pit latrine because there's enough water. Water is really up. You only need some little infrastructure arrangement for that water to be used. So, Mr. Speaker, it is these potentials that I think the petitioner is asking out for, so that if we utilize them, the pressure will be eased by people moving to those low potential areas, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that this petition is significant and it raises matter of national importance. The reason why population in arid and semi-arid areas is low, one of it is because of development. Secondly, there's no water. Thirdly, is insecurity. People will tend to follow development and opportunities. And I think from what the petitioner is posing, once we put resources into those areas, people will automatically go there because opportunities will arise. So for that reason, although Article 204 of our Constitution on Equalization Fund has not been realized, I think also putting a legislative agenda on this matter is important. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Tongaren.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the petition. Mr. Speaker, I think what the petitioner is pointing out to us as a nation is that we need to plan for the future. So what he's saying should not be criticized, but rather should be taken in our stride, especially as the National Assembly, as we plan for the future of this country. Because indeed, the arid and semi-arid areas cover the largest portion of this country, and right now there's a lot of moves to do a lot of oil exploration, and we know the cost, what oil exploration does to land. So he wants to restrict that so that we can use that land for the future generation. But Mr. Speaker, that having been said, we also must admit that once we have sufficient urbanization, we'll still free up a lot of agricultural land if we aim at industrialization and urbanization of our people. Mr. Speaker, I support the petition.
Member for South Imenti.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I wish to submit two petitions from South Imenti constituency. Or maybe, Mr. Speaker, you wanted me to talk to the previous petition.
Sorry, I know you have you may submit your petitions.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, there is a public petition number 013 of 2022 regarding the land subdivision and gazettement of Imenti South Sub-County in Meru County into 3 sub-counties. I, the undersigned, on behalf of 24,493 concerned residents of Imenti South Sub-County in Meru County, draw the attention of the House to the following. That Imenti South Sub-County was established and upgraded into a district in 2005 by Gazette Notice number 9143, volume C7, number 79, written 16th November 2005, and that Imenti South is also an electoral constituency in Kenya, spanning an area of 393 square kilometers. That in its current form, Imenti South Sub-County has 6 wards with a population of 206,506. This is as per the 2019 census, and 107,406 voters as per the 2017 IMBC register. That at a meeting of South Imenti leaders held at Kaguru Farmers Training Center on 25th February 2019, the Deputy County Commissioner reported that the government's decision and made a decision to split South Imenti into 2 subdivisions. The leaders proposed that the division be split into 2 sub-counties instead, and the resolution was forwarded to the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government. That on 9th June 2021, again, Imenti South leaders and the general community held another public participation meeting at Kaguru Farmers Training Center with the Deputy County Commissioner again, who is responsible for Imenti South Sub-County, in attendance, and resolved that Imenti South be split into 2 sub-counties. The resolution was forwarded again to the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government. Number 5, that no issue in relation to subdivision and gazettement of Imenti South Sub-County into 3 sub-counties is pending in any court of law, legal or constitutional body. Number 6, that due to drain, subdivision and gazettement of Imenti South Sub-County, residents have lost a lot in terms of resource allocation and employment opportunities, including recruitment to security and defense forces. Therefore, your humble petition has put it to this House through the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security to cause the national government through the Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Interior and Coordination of National Government to, number 1, uphold the restoration of Imenti South Public Participation Forum held on 25th February 2019 at Kaguru Farmers Training Center, recommending that Imenti South Sub-County be split into 3 sub-counties, namely Imenti South Sub-County, comprising of Nkwene and Mitungu divisions with headquarters at Inkobo, Imenti West Sub-County, comprising of Egozi East and West divisions with headquarters at Yegoji, and Imenti East Sub-County, comprising of Abogeta East, Egoki, and Abogeta West divisions with headquarters at Kanyakine. And if not possible to follow the 9th June 2021 public participation, that recommended the split of 2 sub-counties. Therefore, number 2, the prayer number 2 is that after the Imenti South Sub-County is split and immediately gazetted and post permanent deputy county commissioners to the 3 new sub-counties. And your petitioner will have a plea presented by Kaduri Murungi, MP, South Imenti constituency. The second one, Mr. Speaker, I will try to shorten and just capture maybe 1 or 2 sentences because it is a long one and we have a lot of business to transact this afternoon. This is again public petition number 012 of 2022 regarding the gazettement of Igoki Division in Imenti South Sub-County, again in Meru County. I undersigned on behalf of over 6,257 concerned residents of Imenti South Sub-County in Meru County to draw the attention of the House to the following: that Igoki Division, location now division, was created in 1914 by the colonial government alongside Nkwene, Abogeta, and Egoji, forming the then Imenti South Division. I will skip a few sentences and go straight to say that in the year 1998, the region remained autonomous and elected their representatives to the then Meru County Council for 23 years until the year 2012. Then in the year 2012, Igoki again was discreetly subdivided again without public participation and against the will and consent of the Igoki community. Therefore, the humble petitioners are seeking the intervention of this House through the Departmental Committee of Administration and National Security to inquire into the circumstances under which the Ministry of Interior and the Coordination of National Security has inordinately delayed the gazettement of Igoki as a division since 2019, yet it has so far posted 2 assistant county commissioners to the division. And number 2, intervene in the matters raised in the petition and cause the national government through the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government to immediately gazette Igoki Division and post the permanent assistant county commissioner to serve residents of Igok Division in the new division, and make any other recommendations deemed necessary in addressing the concerns of the petitioners. And your petitioner will ever pray, presented by Kaduri Mnungi again. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for your indulgence, and I thank you again, and wish you the best in your political career, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Nyamai.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to make a comment on the petition regarding improving the arid and semi-arid areas, which you had read earlier. Honorable Speaker, this is a very important petition, and it will be very difficult for the relevant committee to handle this petition without making reference to the Equalization Fund, so that they check on the counties that it was supposed to benefit, the ones that it has benefited so far, the challenges that were faced, and what needs to be done, so that this does not also face the same challenges. Honorable Speaker, identification of these counties will be very important, because I realize that with the current special funding to semi-arid areas seems to leave very important counties like Kitui, Machakos, Makueni, Garissa. I think Garissa is part of it. But Honorable Speaker, just talking about Kitui, where we have several rivers passing by, and all we see is water going to the Indian Ocean. This matter needs to be taken seriously, and I would like the committee to take that into consideration. Also, I would like to say that it will not be about pushing people to those arid and semi-arid areas. It's about ensuring that they make these areas more attractive for targeted investors to go and invest there, so that people can move there to look for jobs or to be part of the investment opportunities. And also to ensure that these areas are secure, because these are the same areas where we have insecurity, like the border of Kitui, Tana River, and I think it is the same in the north and the northeastern counties where this is likely to happen. And I believe that this is a petition that if it is properly handled, it can make a difference in relation to ensuring that we have more resources being pushed to these arid and semi-arid areas, and that we are able to plan for the future of our country, because the population is growing more and more, and the country will require places where people can live, areas which are economically viable. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity.
Well, fortunately, the petition is directed to the committee which you chair, Honorable Nyamai. Yes. So I'm happy that you've already begun addressing yourself to the issues in the petition. Honorable Pukose.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I want to wish you well in your career, and as a presidential candidate, I hope you are able to marshal enough support to win that coveted seat. Honorable Speaker, on the onset, I want to support the petition on reclamation of arid and semi-arid lands. And this can be done through proper irrigation. When you look at Israel, the kibbutz farms, they've done a lot on it, and we can be able to copy. Unfortunately, when we did the Kalana Kulalu, we did not do it in a proper way. Instead, we turned it into an embarrassment to this country, and I think that was very unfortunate. On the second petition, Honorable Speaker, by Honorable Kaduri Murungi, member for South Imenti, I want to support him, Honorable Speaker, because splitting his constituency, given the dynamics that he's been able to present here, I think that will take services closer to the people, and it will be for the betterment of the people of South Imenti. And I think it needs all the support that should be able to get, so that and is given a chronology of events since some times back on what has happened, even failure to cassette sub-counties that were created, and that denies the people of South Imenti the crucial services like recruitments in terms of police, recruitments in army, employment in terms of teachers, and many other issues. So, Honorable Speaker, it's important when these services are done. You know, the other day I was in Kwangsa constituency visiting my friend Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi, and his people have to come all the way to Endebess for registration to get a birth certificate. And I say this is a very unfortunate thing, and I hope that the administration will work on it to make sure that the birth certificates are issued in Kwangsa Center, not in Endebess, because somebody walking all the way from Kwangsa to Endebess to go and get this crucial document, I think it's very unfair to the people of Kwangsa and very unfair even to those who deem to need those services, similar to the people of South Imendi. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Tharaka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also support the first petition on the grounds that we need to reconsider our position as regards availability of arable lands in the country, and especially when we have tracts of huge land which are said to be arid and semi-arid, and those lands are found everywhere, including my county, Tharaka Nithi, my constituency itself. I think and I believe this is the time when the government should address itself to a form of reclamation of the arid and semi-arid lands so that they become arable and they are used for agricultural purposes. We know very well that as we attained independence, there was mass movement of people, especially from central Kenya to the Rift Valley. One was to pave way for large-scale farming so that we could sustain our economy. And the other one was actually to open up the arable lands in the Rift Valley and elsewhere in the coast so that these would be used for agricultural purposes. I believe this is what this petition is looking to do, and we should actually support it. I also support the two petitions by the Honorable Kathuri Murungi, my neighbor. Let's have units of administration move to the speed and gazetted and effected, actualized, so that our people can receive services from the nearest distances. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Dagoretti South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And my short comments are on the petition about the irrigation of arid lands so that they can become productive. Mr. Speaker, we have been held hostage by decisions that were made very many years ago at the beginning, sunrise years of this nation, where we made decisions to invest in certain places and certain parts of this country, Mr. Speaker. However, as the committee is taking this matter, I wish they would look beyond just the funding of such projects, Mr. Speaker, and even see as to why some of the plans that had been made, even before this country became a nation, where such plans went, Mr. Speaker. It is in public knowledge that before the colonialists left this country, they had an elaborate plan on how we can irrigate the entire country from every corner of this country to get sufficient water that could have actually reached every corner of the country using gravity, Mr. Speaker. So as they're addressing this petition, it would be good for them to go back to the archives, see where some of these impressive plans are, so that, Mr. Speaker, we shall be able to do in this country what countries like Egypt are doing. Egypt is said to be a desert, Mr. Speaker, but we are importing fruits from Egypt. Israel, Mr. Speaker, is not as arable as some parts of the country here that we call arid areas. So, Mr. Speaker, I think there's a lot of work to be done by the committee on this petition, and if they got it right, Mr. Speaker, we can make this country not only food sufficient, but also capable of producing enough food even for export. But, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of forced movement of people to allow for this arrangement, Mr. Speaker, that one I object. I do believe that the committee is up to the task to attend to this petition, and I do thank the petitioners for bringing it. And Mr. Speaker, on your path, I do congratulate you, and you have brought up a good discussion for national discussion in our politics, Mr. Speaker, about sanitizing our politics, bringing political hygiene into politics, Mr. Speaker. And you should be credited for raising such an issue, Mr. Speaker, so that we can sanitize and make our politics a bit more hygienic. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And no political conmanship, Mr. Speaker, or taking off with monies for political parties when you get into a coalition with them and playing the smaller brothers in a coalition. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Member Member for Lamu.
Asante Bwana Spika kunipatia na mimi nafasi nami nichangie. Bwana Spika, moja kwa moja mimi naunga mkono hili ombi. Bwana Spika, ningeomba wenzangu walioko hapa bunge, tukipata miswada kama hii tufikirie kama Wakenya. Tusianze kufikiria ukabila, manake imekuwa desturi hapa kila kinapangwa kwa sababu ya walio wengi. Na Bwana Spika, mimi naweza kupatia mfano katika hii ombi. Imesema Lamu gas, ipatikane gas. Lamu kulikuja na kampuni inaitwa Zarara, wakatafuta gas wakakosa, lakini gas iko, kampuni nyingine ikija itapata. Mfano ni Zarara ilipokuja Lamu, si huyo mkubwa hapa wa hapo kwa hiyo Zarara alikuwa anaitwa Mr. Ndungu, si Mbajuni. Wakifaidika wanafaidika watu wote. Bwana Spika, hizi sehemu tunafaa tuzifungue na wenzetu hapa au kamati watembelee. Zikifunguliwa zitasaidia Kenya nzima, haitasaidia Lamu peke yake. Bwana Spika, kule kuna changamoto. Unaenda kutoka Lamu mpaka Ndau masaa mawili, jisaji moja na dakika 20 kutafuta kama ni kura 800. Bwana Spika, unaenda Kiwayu jisaji moja na nusu kwa boti kutafuta kura 300. Na hiyo mafuta inakupeleka Ndau na kukuregesha, ya kupeleka Ndau na kukuregesha, inakupeleka Nairobi na kukuregesha. So changamoto ni tofauti. Msione mmekaa hapa Nairobi mkakuwa mnafanya siasa zaidi kwa sababu hamtaki maendeleo mengine kuyafanya labda. Relevance Bwana Spika, wasaidiwe watu ambao ni marginalized na area ambao zina ukame na zinaweza saidia Kenya nzima. Ndio maana nimezungumza mambo ya gas. Ikifunguliwa kule haitamsaidia Mbajuni peke yake, itasaidia Kenya nzima, italipa ushuru Kenya nzima, kila mtu atafaidika kama.
Member for Kwanza, but please be relevant, eh?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving the chance to speak on that. And I support the petition. One, I think in this country we are actually experiencing an increase in population. And if we don't take steps, we're going to have problems. The next 20 years, there'll be a problem. One, I think let's have funds to be able to create, like Honorable Bokosa said, I've been in Israel and I was so surprised. The place is very dry, but the activities there is because of directing the water to the right places as far as irrigation is concerned, and it has worked very well. They have no food shortages. Secondly, the Speaker, again, you will find that, and I hope I'll be able to be invited by the Lands Committee so that I can be able to have an input in that, because we are having arable land now being subdivided, and the land is becoming smaller and smaller because of population. And therefore, we want to at least to do the way the late Nyerere actually suggested vijiji vya ujamaa, where the family stay in one place and leave other areas for cultivation. And I therefore want to ask the committee, please let me have an input when you have a meeting, because I don't belong to that committee, so that I can be able to put in my input on the same. I support.
Member for Nakuru Town East.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. First of all, as much as you're telling us not to talk about relevance, Honorable Speaker, you know I've voted for you twice in this House, and I will be coming to your office because it's also important. We are your first voters and your first constituents. So we appreciate you visited Nakuru. Karibu sana. Once again, na uniite kwa mkutano yako. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support Honorable Kathuri's petition. Honorable Speaker, it is important for us to realize, especially the Committee on Administration, to realize the importance of what Honorable Kathuri has just brought up. Honorable Kathuri is seeking some very important things which go through public participation, Honorable Speaker, and these resolutions at some point, they are never adhered to. Honorable Speaker, I'm saying this, that much as Honorable Kathuri is seeking for the gazettement of these kind of issues, particularly on where we have divisions and subdivisions, Honorable Speaker, even in my Nakuru Town East constituency, Honorable Speaker, it's sad to see Nakuru Town East has gazetted subdivisions and divisions, and yet it is not being implemented. While my colleague in Nakuru Town West, all that was passed and gazetted was approved, and already the chiefs and the sub-chiefs are there. So it is important for the chair, as they look into this petition, that they also need to look into the others which have already been gazetted, but they are not, they have not been implemented. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise to support the early petition on irrigating our arable land. Honourable Speaker, scientists estimate that by the year 2050, unless we change our agricultural system, Kenya will not be able to produce food to sustain our citizenry. That petition, Honourable Speaker, is thought-provoking to this House and particularly the committee to make the necessary recommendations to secure this country in terms of food production. Indeed, we've got huge tracts of land, over 80%, that can be converted into useful agricultural production and to feed the entire country. Of course, the other aspect of relocating citizens is a bit controversial, but of course that will be sorted out by the housing flagship that we've talked about, that it's almost time we rationalize the settlement of people in this country so that we can free more agricultural space for food production. Honorable Speaker, you may note that since independence, we adopted a land tenure system that does not allow promotion of technology. And there is need to focus more in, of course, when you look at countries like Israel, not only Israel, even Saudi Arabia, where they desalinizing the seawater to be able to use it for agriculture. And really, a lot has been done in terms of agricultural production in Saudi Arabia and Israel. Kenya, we can do far much better. And indeed, agricultural sector need to be funded more than security to ensure food sustainability.
Member for Kilifi South. Member having appeals to me. I have requested.
Thank you, Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand to present petition number 011 of 2022. This is regarding persistent harassment and unlawful eviction of residents of Kuruwitu village of Junju Ward in Kilifi South constituency. I, the undersigned, on behalf of the residents of Kuruwitu village of Junju Ward in Kilifi South constituency, draw the attention of the House the following. That Kuruwitu village is in Shariani, sublocation in Junju Ward of Kilifi South constituency, is a pre-colonial village that was established in 1882 by one Alik bin Muhammad and currently constitutes 5 parcels of land, namely LR 268, 55, 269, 23, 267, 299 and 300, all on section 3 of Mineral North, and they consist of 100 acres. That Mr. Malik bin Mohammed and his wife passed away childless in 1940, leaving the land under the care of the family of Mr. Saidi Nzai Kombe, who was his business apprentice, with the land being registered under the Land Title Ordinance of the British Protectorate in Kenya as number 6290. That over the years, the population of Kuruwitu village increased and expanded exponentially on account of Mr. Malik bin Mohammed's legacy of hospitality, by which he welcomed many people to settle in Shariani, some of whom were seeking safety from the ongoing slave trade in the coastal region. 4. That in addition to the original Mijikenda and Swahili communities, intermarriages and commerce created diversification at Kuruwitu that included the Meru, Kamba, Kikuyu, Masai, and other communities. 5. That currently the land hosts a wide range of public utilities such as hospitals, schools, petrol stations, garages, mosques, churches, bars,
restaurants, public administration offices of the Assistant County Commissioner, chiefs and assistant chiefs, as well as tourism, agriculture, and fishing activities. 6, that for many years since independence, the residents have attempted to secure the regularization of the ownership of the land for purpose of security of tenure and for realization of its full economic potential, but to no avail. That in 1947, one Mr. Hassan bin Omar arrived in Kuruitu from Lamu, and upon his request was given a portion of land to put up a home. That in 2014, the residents were shocked when a land search revealed that provisional titles to the land had been issued in the names of Mr. Hassan Omar Hassan, Mr. Muhammad bin Ali, Mr. Ali bin Muhammad, Mr. Ali bin Haji, and Mr. Muhammad bin Abdul Karim. That these 5 individuals have for several years persistently and harassed the residents of Kuruitu, threatened them with eviction, and constantly demolishing their houses belonging to some of the over 10,000 residents. That efforts by the petitioners to seek the intervention of the Minister of Land, the National Land Commission, and other offices have been futile. And that the matters contained in this petition are not pending before any court of law or before any legal or constitutional body. Now, therefore, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee on Lands, in collaboration with the National Land Commission, 1, urgently inquires into the irregular allocation of plots number 268, 269, 276, 299, and 300, all in Section 3 of Mainland North, in Kuruitu village, to Masters Hassan Omar Hassan, Muhammad bin Ali, Ali bin Muhammad, Ali bin Haj, and Muhammad bin Abdul Karim, with a view to securing the revocation of the illegal land transaction in order to revert ownership of the land to the residents of Kuruitu village, who are the rightful owners. 2, secures the issuance of certificates of title to the residents of Shariani sublocation to facilitate the realization of the full economic potential of their land. And 3, makes any other order or relief that it deems fit to secure the welfare and rights of the petitioners. And your petitioners will ever pray. Presented by me, Honorable Ken Chonga. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, I think I will end the comments on petitions now. The time is over. The 30 minutes which is allocated for comments. So your petition will go to the committee. It will deal with it there. Let's move to the next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Leader majority.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, the 1st of March, 2022. The first batch is the reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect to the following institutions for the year ended 30th of June, 2020, and the certificates therein. And these are Kiambu Institute of Science and Technology, Auctioneers Licensing Board, Kenya Medical Laboratory Technicians and Technologists Board, Kenya Marine Research Institute, Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council, Kenya Medical Training College, Pharmacy and Poisons Board, National AIDS Control Council, the National Quality Control Laboratory, the National Center on Groundwater Resource Education, Training and Research in East Africa, the Meru National Polytechnic, Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, Kenya Coast National Polytechnic, Pwani University, Ahmed Shahame Mwidani Technical Training Institute, National Mining Corporation, Kenya Water Institute, Public Regulatory Authority, NW Technical, the new Technical and Vocational College, the Mitungu Technical Training Institute. And the second batch is the reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect to the following constituencies for the year ended 30th of June 2020 and the certificates therein. And these are Kitui East, Mwingi West, Machakos Town, Kangundo, Mbere North, Belgut, Kitui Central, Kangema, Kaloleni, Mvita, Marakwet East, Magarini, Kari, Lunga Lunga, Sigor, Kitutu Chacha South, Rangwe, Lugari, Kimilili, Bobasi, Budalangi, Wajir East, Shinyalu, Endebes, and finally Malawa. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Chairman, Transport, Public Works.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. Reports of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing on its consideration of Roman 1, a petition on behalf of the residents of South Rift and Nyanza regarding the viability of the standard gauge railway project by Honorable David Olesangok. Roman 2, Honorable Speaker, a petition regarding the compensation of owners of the land acquired for construction of St. Mary's Kinooro access to Ikoji TTC Kiamchuku Mbogoro Road project, Honorable Speaker, by Honorable Kareke Mbuki. And finally, a petition regarding proposal to amend the National Construction Authority Act to provide for inclusion of the cost of public funded projects on project signboard, Honorable Speaker, by Mr. Boniface Mwangi. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Chair Health. Chair Health, or the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unajua lazima nivae barakoa kwa sababu sheria ndio iko sasa. Lakini Bwana Speaker,
but you've been doing very well with the two ladies without it.
Speaker, it means also you've been also keen. You've been looking at the ladies, not only me. So it means also your eyes have been somewhere. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. Report of the Departmental Committee on Health on its consideration of the Mental Health Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 28 of 2022. I thank you.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable Sankok. Oh, is absent, not desiring to be present. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
First question by the Honorable Gikaria.
Sorry, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to ask question number 056 of 2022 to the Cabinet Secretary, Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works. Question number 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why the Kenya National Highway Authority, KENHA, has stopped public service vehicles, PSV, from using the bus stop commonly known as the Tegoro bus stop located near Nakuru Town footbridge along Nakuru-Nairobi Highway, despite it being a recognized bus stop? 2, could the Cabinet Secretary consider removing the blockades and reopening the said bus stop? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
To be replying to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing, The next question is by the Honorable Dr. Robert Pukose.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to ask question number 059 of 2022 to the Cabinet Secretary for Environment and Forestry. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the circumstances that led to the suspension of community forest associations that undertook the Shamba system, commonly referred as the Unkia system, in various forest establishments in the country? 2, what impact has this directive had on the forest cover in the country, and when will the directive be lifted? Number 3, could the Cabinet Secretary explain whether the Kenya Forest Service maintains roads that serve forests, and particularly in Endebe's constituency, Endebe's, Salama, and Haman Kiptokot roads? 5, what plans does the ministry have to resettle the more than 1,500 families evicted from Socio Forest on 25th October 2021, and how is the ministry dealing with the humanitarian crisis as a result of the evictions that were carried out? And Honorable Speaker, these people have been suffering since that time when they were evicted, and it's very unfortunate that the government has not so far taken care of these people, despite even the Red Cross visiting them and doing the assessment. So, Honorable Speaker, this is a humanitarian crisis, and as the rains are now going to come, you will find that these people are going to suffer because their houses were demolished, some of their foods were taken away, and these people within Socio Forest are suffering up to today. So, Honorable Speaker, thank you.
I thought you were asking a question.
Yes, I've asked. I just took advantage of your conversation.
Question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. Next question is by the Honorable Sosion.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question number 60/2022, directed to the Teacher Service Commission. 1, could the Teacher Service Commission confirm whether the numerous cases of interdiction, suspensions, and transfers of teachers to far-flung areas away from their homes, of teachers who have raised pertinent issues directly regarding the manner in which the competency-based curriculum, teacher professional development are being rolled out in accordance with the employment and labor laws? 2, could the Commission explain why it is promoting workplace intimidation and perpetuating unfair labor practices against teachers whenever they raise concerns over their welfare matters, including delayed promotions and upgrading, collective bargaining agreements with no monetary benefits, a facade implementation of teacher performance appraisals, development, TPAD, among many others concerns? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Question. Sorry. Before the Committee on Education and Research, the next question is by the member for Sigowet Soin, the Honorable Kipsengeret Koros, who wrote requesting for deferment of the question to Thursday this week. Request was acceded to. So move to the next question by the member for Kuresoi South, the Honorable Tonui. The Honorable Joseph Tonui, member for Kuresoi South. Member for Kuresoi South for the second time. The Honorable Joseph Tonui, member being absent, not desiring to be present, question is dropped. Move to the next segment, which is a request for statement. I have a request from the Honorable Kasim Tandaza, member for Matuga.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to request for a statement on failure by the Kenya National Highways Authority to compensate residents of Matuga constituency. Honorable Speaker, Pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44-2C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing regarding failure by the Kenya National Highways Authority to compensate victims of land acquired for expansion of the Mombasa-Lungalunga Road. Honorable Speaker, good road network gives impetus to economic development of a country through expanding connectivity and enabling free movement of goods, services, and people. The Dongokundu bypass is one of the major flagship infrastructure projects earmarked to turn around the economic fortunes of the coastal region. In order to expand the width of the bypass and other link roads, the government compulsorily annexed 10-meter strips of private land and demolished structures on it, particularly along Mombasa-Lungalunga Road. Honorable Speaker, Article 43 and 4 of the Constitution obligates the state to promptly and justly compensate for affected people, including those who may not hold title to the land, for any land acquired for public use. Sadly, residents of Pungu, Wa, Ngombeni, Denyenya, and Tiwi locations in Matuga constituency, whose land was annexed by Kenha to allow for expansion of the Mombasa-Lungalunga Road, are yet to be compensated. Honorable Speaker, it is on this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing on the following. 1. The reasons as to why Kenya has failed to compensate victims of land compulsorily acquired for expansion of Mombasa-Lungalunga Road, particularly the residents of Pungu, Wa, Ngombeni, Denyenya, and Tiwi locations in Matuga constituency. 2. When does Kenya intend to conclusively compensate the patriotic Kenyans who gave up their private land in good faith, including their structures that had to be demolished in order to pave way for the expansion of the Mombasa-Lungalunga Road and construction of the Dongokundu bypass? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
You say your statement is to the Honorable Kosing. When are you?
Honorable Speaker, without anticipating debate or what happens at the end of the week, I can commit to take 2 weeks. It's a very important, it's a good question or statement.
Very well.
Thank you, Speaker.
2 weeks, Honorable Tandaza. 2 weeks. Yeah. Very well. Next order.
Order number 8, procedural motion, reduction of publication period for a specified bill.
Honorable Kimunya, Leader of Majority. Honorable Kanini Kega, Chair of Budget.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. I beg to move that notwithstanding the provisions of Standing Order 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 8 of 2022 from 7 days to 4 days. Honorable Speaker, this is straightforward because the Division of Revenue is a product of the BPS. And the BPS we have extensively and exhaustively dealt with here, including the public participation. Honorable Speaker, the second issue is that we need also to dispense off with this bill so that at least it can also go to the Senate, so that we can also give rise to the other processes for the budget to continue. With those few remarks, I want to move and request the Majority Leader, Honorable Kimunya, to second.
Honorable Kimunya.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to second. And just to alert members that we just had a very intensive discussion and consultation on the BPS, during which this matter was fairly exposed. We did discuss it in the House Business Committee this morning and looked at the options available and agreed it's in the best interest of the country and the best interest of the county governments and the best interest of this Parliament to actually process this Division of Revenue Bill within this week so that we don't have to interrupt the recess of members to come and discuss it during recess. And in any case, since the matter has been widely publicized, the figure was known, the figure was included in the BPS. This House passed the BPS. So it's basically the bill. We can now give the committee some time to just go and prepare the report. Then in the course of tomorrow or Thursday, we then process the bill, which then gives the Treasury the opportunity to bring the estimate. And I want to just alert members of this House, because it's important as we make this decision, that the courts have decided that printed estimates cannot be introduced into the House before the Division of Revenue Act has been assented, before we have a Division of Revenue Act. So it's a matter that we are being called upon to fulfill our constitutional requirement, that before we can receive the estimates, we must have processed the Division of Revenue Bill, after which the bill will go to the Senate. The Senate will carry further public participation. By the time we come back, then we'll have a DORA, and that will now untie the budgeting process. And we don't have much time for that budgeting process because of, obviously, the campaigns, and members need to go and carry out their nomination. So it's in our interest that we clear some of these things, so we are free to actually go to our constituents and appeal to them for our fresh mandate. And hence, looking at all those parameters into account, we thought the best thing is we appeal to the members of this House that we shorten the publication period, because there's already been public participation. There will be further public participation within the Senate. And after that, the most important thing is we untie. We provide the Treasury with the opportunity to provide us with the printed estimates so that we can interrogate that further, and including the financing for our activities even within our areas. So I just want to appeal to members that on this particular one, let us be united, let us have a bipartisan approach to it, and we avoid our own factional issues so that we think of what is in the best interest of our country at this point, which is the processing of the budget before we get very busy with the electoral cycle. Honorable Speaker, with that appeal, I beg to second.
Order members. This is the Honorable Sosion. The Honorable Sosion, please. No, it's not done that way. Just stand next to the Honorable Millie Odhiambo. She is not harmful, as you are doing. Honourable members, I propose the question, which is that notwithstanding the provision standing under number 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 8 of 2022, from 7 days to 4 days. As the Chair of the House, I put the question. I proceed so to do. That notwithstanding the provision standing under 120, this House resolves to reduce the publication period of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 8 of 2022, from 7 days to 4 days. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 9, the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 8 of 2022, first reading. A bill for an act of Parliament to provide for the equitable division of revenue raised nationally between the national and county governments in 2022-2023 financial year and for connected purposes.
Before the Honourable Member for Tesla North, you under an issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to wish you the very best in the quest for the presidency in this country. And Mr. Speaker, the question I wanted to ask is related to legislative proposal that last year, August on 23rd, you allowed an introduction that I introduced a bill to amend the Kenya Medical Training College Act to provide for constituent colleges, management and governance. Mr. Speaker, the legislative proposal has been lying with the Committee of Budget and Appropriation for determination on the financial content or implication, whether the bill has financial implication. Mr. Speaker, I wanted your guidance because last week I wrote to you, Mr. Speaker, to request, given the where we are now as a House and where we are heading, that the bill be published if the committee are unable to give the report. We are now in March, and I submitted it last year, December, Mr. Speaker, sir. So you need your guidance on that, and I request that this bill can be published so that within this available time we can process, because it's a very important bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, fortunately, the chair of budget is himself in the House. Let's hear it from the horse's mouth. A legislative proposal to amend the Kenya Medical Training Center.
Honorable Speaker, I seek your indulgence that I'll have the report by tomorrow. I know there are quite a number of legislative proposals that we have been able to process. I want to check the status and what became of it. So, Honorable Speaker, with your indulgence, I'll give a report by tomorrow.
Tomorrow afternoon?
Tomorrow afternoon, sir.
Very well, Honorable Kaunya. Tomorrow afternoon, the Chair of Budget will give a report on the status of your legislative proposal. Now, the Honorable David Olesankok, what you have an intervention. What is the issue?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And I'm very sorry for having stepped out earlier. And last week I had rose on a motion of adjournment on I've risen on a definite matter of urgent national importance to discuss rising food prices in the country. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 33-1.
No, what now? You know, we've just cleared order number 8-9.
Yes, sir.
I saw you have placed an intervention, and so I don't know what.
Well, the direction was given that it is today 6 o'clock, so I wanted just to confirm.
By who? You know?
By the Speaker.
But you see, that was, you should have done that when we were at order number 6, which is notices of motion. So are you seeking the intervention of the Speaker to allow you to go back, we go back to order number 6, so as to allow you to give notice of this motion?
Yes, sir. I need your guidance because already directions were given that today at 6 p.m. we'll have the motion of adjournment, and it was allowed by the Speaker, that is Honorable Cheboy, who was sitting on your behalf. So
there's already
slated for 6
p.m.
today. So I just wanted to confirm.
If that, no, I don't have to go. If it was, and I believe the clerk will confirm. If that is a position, that's the position?
Yes, yes, sir.
So that everybody knows that from the hour of 6 p.m.,
yes,
the House will
adjourn.
Will stop business, which will be then in consideration to allow you to move that motion.
Yes, sir. And thank you very much for your guidance.
Very well, very well. You don't have to give notice again.
Yes.
Because today you might not have the numbers.
Yes. So thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. And that is why you are a presidential candidate. And you hear everybody supporting you. And you are a mobile encyclopedia when it comes to our constitution. You really know. So thank you very much.
Proceed. Very well. We proceed to the next motion. Next business.
Order number 10, motion. Report on the medium-term debt management strategy for the financial year 2022-2023.
Chairman, Budget and Appropriations Committee.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the medium-term debt management strategy for the financial year 2022-2023, submitted by the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury pursuant to the provisions of Section 33 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 and Standing Order 232-4 laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 15, 2022, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 15.4 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 and Standing Order number 232.9 and 10. And Honorable Speaker, A, approves the medium-term debt management strategy for the financial year 2022-2023. B, approves the national borrowing strategy as contained in the 2022-2023 medium-term debt management strategy at a level consistent with the fiscal deficit of Kenya shilling 400 billion or 3% of GDP, whichever is lower. However, I am aware of some amendments that have been brought by the majority leader in pursuant to what we also passed in the BPS. And C, makes the policy resolutions contained in the second schedule to the order paper policy resolution relating to the medium-term debt management strategy for the financial year 2022-2023. Honorable Speaker, the 2022 medium-term debt management strategy was tabled in the National Assembly on Tuesday, November 30th, 2021, pursuant to Section 33(1) of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 and Standing Order number 232.1. Upon tabling, it was committed to the Budget and Appropriations Committee for review in line with the Standing Order number 232.6. It is therefore, Honorable Speaker, my pleasure and great honor on behalf of the Budget and Appropriations Committee to table the report on the 2022 medium-term debt management strategy and recommend to this House for adoption. Honorable Speaker, this is the first time that we are getting a separate report on the medium-term debt management strategy to be tabled in the House since the enactment of the Public Finance Management Act 2012. The decision by the committee to table a separate report was necessitated by the need to broaden the understanding of the effects of borrowing and the accruals of public stock of debt on economic growth, taxation, and livelihood. Honorable Speaker, according to the recent data from the Central Bank of Kenya, the Kenya public stock of debt has increased in both numbers and value, and it is currently estimated at Kenya shilling 8.2 trillion. This calls for the enhancement, of course, of oversight. Honorable Speaker, the tabling of the standalone report on NTDS provides a more focused approach in appreciating and deliberating on debt matters. Indeed, the committee is dedicated to undertaking further engagement with all parties in the view of Kenya public stock of debt and control of the embedded risk. Honorable Speaker, the stock of debt continues to grow as a result of persistent fiscal deficit. For the financial year 2022-2023, the mismatch between the proposed debt ceiling estimated at Kenya shilling 3.34 trillion shillings and the revenue projection estimated at Kenya shilling 2.4 trillion has resulted in a fiscal deficit estimated at Kenya shilling 846 billion, or 6.0 of the GDP. This is indicated in the 2022 budget policy statement. Honorable Speaker, the fiscal deficit necessitated borrowing in order to meet the difference. To this extent, for the financial year 2022-2023, the MTDS has proposed the following borrowing strategy. 1, the gross foreign financing, that is at 25%, and the gross domestic financing ratio, that is 75%. 2, the net foreign financing at 32% and net domestic financing ratio at 68%. Honorable Speaker, before arriving at this strategy, the MTDS evaluated various borrowing strategies, considering the inherent risk in the existing debt stock. The aim was to achieve the following debt management objective. 1, reduction of the cost and risk. 2, development of domestic market institutions. And 3, ensuring equitable sharing of burden between the present and future generation as enshrined in our Constitution. Honorable Speaker, the 2022 MTDS provides a shift from the previous borrowing strategy by bringing the domestic market to the forefront of budget financing. It is expected that this will cushion the debt stock from volatility in the global financial markets. Honorable Speaker, in addition to the borrowing mix, Mr. Speaker, the MTDS proposes a raft of measures to promote the development of developed market and institutions in order to enhance the domestic market efficiency and provide sufficient access to credit finance by both public and private sectors. Honorable Speaker, these reforms include 1, enhancing market infrastructure through automation of a new central security depository system by CBK. 2, enhancement of the treasury bonds benchmark programs. And 3, setting up of over-the-counter trading platform to complement the Nairobi Stock Securities Exchange, among others. Honorable Speaker, I wish to inform this House that the debt management strategy has also taken advantage of the debt servicing suspension initiative, DSSI, to create room for the government to meet critical expenditure needs. To this extent, Mr. Speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to extend gratitude to our creditors and the international development partners for their consideration in assisting Kenya to free up to Kenya shilling 46 billion, which was redirected to our social, health, and economic spending in response to the COVID-19 crisis. Honorable Speaker, as part of the review of the 2022 MTDS, the committee held extensive deliberations with the National Treasury on the critical aspect of the medium-term debt management strategy and the BPS. During these engagements, the committee noted with concern that the public debt will amount to Kenya shillings 8.6 trillion in the financial year 2022-2023. The National Treasury did make commitment to the committee that they are totally in control of the public debt situation and will continue and will be proposing sustainable measures in the near future. Honorable Speaker, having noted this, it is true that the cost and risk of the task of the debt burden will remain elevated. As such, prudent debt management is very crucial, as this risk coupled with the frequency and increasing size of debt servicing could affect medium-term fiscal sustainability and slow down the pace of economic recovery. Honorable Speaker, it follows therefore that the following key policies should be applied. The fiscal consolidation, Honorable Speaker. We need to retire, the commercial debts in favor of concessional debts or loans. Enhancing transparency. Need to know what has been borrowed and where it is going. The 3, increasing effectiveness of resource allocation. 4, efficiency of use of diminishing resources. And 5, fiscal discipline and fiscal commitment, as also enshrined in our Constitution. Honorable Speaker, I want to say and confirm to this House that the only institution that is mandated by law to provide the actual figures as the size of our debt is only Central Bank of Kenya. And by December, they provided so. So any person, any institution, any entity claiming that the debt of the country is beyond 8.2, it's hearsay, doesn't have any merit, and is not documented. What we have in our records is that the debt as at December of last year was 8.2 trillion shillings and is projected to to be at 8.6 by the end of this financial year. Honorable Speaker, with those very few remarks, I beg to move and request the Majority Whip, Honorable Wangwe, to second. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Wangwe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to second the motion on the medium-term debt management strategy as cleverly, ably laid on the, discussed by the Chair. Honorable Speaker, on the onset, I'll just give a highlight. The details have been discussed by the Chair. And just to make the members, Honorable Speaker, understand that this is originating from Article 212, particularly Article 212, which defines what a public debt is to the Kenyan people, Honorable Speaker. And it says, Honorable Speaker, that the public debt means all financial obligations attendant to loans raised or guaranteed and securities issued or guaranteed by the national government, Honorable Speaker. That definition is what this document, Honorable Speaker, highlights and enables members to understand where are we in terms of the debt of this country, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the strategy highlighted in this document, especially by the government, intends over the medium term with a view, Honorable Speaker, to reducing the cost and risk associated with the public debt, and is anchored in the 2022 budget, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, just as in terms of the recommendations laid in this document, taking the two sides, Honorable Speaker, of the policy recommendations, it talks about, Honorable Speaker, that by April 2022, when the national budget is tabled, a full quantification of Kenya's public debt stock as defined under this article, which I've just read 2 and 4 of the Constitution, be undertaken. Honorable Speaker, members need to appreciate that we need to know where are we, how much is our debt, and appreciate, Honorable Speaker, as we prepare the budget for 2022-2023, we need to know by April or March, whichever comes earlier, what is our global debt position, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the report also states that a debt register should be submitted on a quarterly basis to Parliament, Honorable Speaker, for scrutiny. The committee recommends, Honorable Speaker, that we do keep a debt register so that any movement, any shift, Honorable Speaker, should be really laid on the table of this House so that members can be able to understand how much debt the country is servicing or how much debt the country is bearing. Honorable Speaker, in the same report, it recommends that, Honorable Speaker, by April 2022, when the national budget is tabled, a progress report on all externally funded projects be provided in order to enhance transparency and accountability. Honorable Speaker, when we are talking of public debt, it's not just an issue of domestic debt alone. We should also appreciate that the government borrows externally. Therefore, it is the view of the committee, Honorable Speaker, that let there be a full list of the public debt to be put together, Honorable Speaker. In terms of the financial recommendations, Honorable Speaker, the committee is of the view that the country's borrowing strategy be approved, Honorable Speaker. There are 4 strategies that the government is proposing through the medium-term debt strategy, Honorable Speaker, as well elaborated by the Chair. We are requesting that, Honorable Speaker, this medium-term debt management strategy be approved, but inconsistent with the fiscal deficit of the 400 billion that is maybe either the 400 billion or 3% of the GDP, whichever is low. Honorable Speaker, the committee is cautious that whatever approval we take, let it not be beyond the 400 billion. The reason being, Honorable Speaker, at 846 trillion, it means if we exceed by 400 billion, Honorable Speaker, 8.6, we will now be surpassing the debt ceiling that's approved by the House. We are of cognizance, Honorable Speaker, that until this House approves anything extra, we have to live within the 9 trillion debt ceiling. With those very few recommendations, Honorable Speaker, I beg to second.
I propose the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the medium-term debt management strategy for the financial year 2022-2023, submitted by the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury, pursuant to the provisions of Section 33 of the Public Finance Management Act of 2012, and starting under 232, subsection 4, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February 15, 2022, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 15, subsection 4 of the Public Finance Management Act of 2012, and standing under 232, subsections 9 and 10, A, approves the medium-term debt management strategy for the financial year 2022-2023. B, approves the national borrowing strategy as contained in the 2022-2023 medium-term debt management strategy at a level consistent with the fiscal deficit of Kenya shillings 400 billion or 3% of GDP, whichever is lower. And C, makes the policy resolutions contained in the second schedule to the order paper, which is policy resolutions relating to the medium-term debt management strategy for the financial year 2022-2023. Honourable members, I have received indication of some proposed amendments, and I intend to dispense with them first so that debate can commence either with the motion as amended or as is. The first amendment proposal is from the Leader of the Majority Party.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, I beg to move in an amended form, pursuant to Standing Order number 48, that the motion be amended, 1, by deleting paragraph B, and 2, by inserting the following new paragraph after paragraph C, which is a D, reading, delete the second sentence in paragraph 18 and the financial recommendations of the report. Honourable Speaker, members will note on the order paper that initially I had intended to delete the entire paragraph 18, but I did realize that the problem was not in the entire paragraph, but just in the second sentence that has reference to a deficit, fiscal deficit of 400 billion. Honourable Speaker, as members will recall, when we discussed the BPS, we did agree in principle that the issue of exceeding the debt ceiling is an issue we will only consider when we have the printed estimates. Otherwise, as of now, it becomes speculative, because at that point is when Treasury will be very clear in terms of this is the revenue streams we are expecting, this is the debt that we are expecting, this is the total expenditure, and we give them the options of rationalizing expenditure, increasing the revenue, or even being bold enough to come to this House and say they would want the debt ceiling amended. So until those three options have been fully exhausted, it's presumptive to say that we can cap the debt ceiling, the fiscal deficit, to a certain figure. Further, Honourable Speaker, I do note that within the committee recommendations in the report, at paragraph 17, they have indicated that they are actually asking that by April of 2022, the national, together with the national budget, when it's being tabled, that the Treasury should bring a full quantification of Kenya's public debt as defined in Article 214 of the Constitution. And this is supposed to be brought to this House. So it's only at that point that we can reasonably put a figure and say we are capping in strategy or in pronouncement that we are capping the fiscal deficit to a certain figure, when we will know for sure what figure accompanies the budget, the estimates that have been brought. And just so that we are consistent with what this House approved when approving the BPS and removing reference to a figure of 400, I am moving this amendment so that we remove the reference to a figure of a fiscal deficit of 400 billion, which was premised on the figure that we removed in a BPS. And we let the matter be resolved at the point when we now get the printed estimates, which will come with the latest figures in terms of revenue, the latest figures in terms of debt, and at that point we will make a decision in terms of whether the estimates exceed the debt ceiling. At this point, strategy, the statement of intention is basically telling us the broad policy framework, the broad policy the programs to be achieved, but the quantification of the figures will only come in when we receive the budget estimates. So, Honorable Speaker, that's the rationale for removing the reference to the 400 billion, which is in the recommendation, in the motion, and also going now to the report of the committee, where in paragraph 18, they say that the strategy should be consistent with a fiscal deficit of 400 billion, or 300%, or 3% of GDP, which is lower. Now that figure could change. It could be 200, it could be 600, it could be 800 when the figure is quantified. And hence, it would not be fair to actually put in a figure of telling the Treasury that do whatever you have, but don't borrow more than 400 billion. It could, if they brought, between now and the estimate, if Treasury brought to this House a debt enhancement, a debt ceiling enhancement motion, and this House passed it, again this will become otious. So it's just to allow for that flexibility that at this point we are considering strategy, we consider the broad policy statement within the BPS, and reference to the figures is misleading at the very least. So, Honorable Speaker, that's why I really want to urge the House that we amend the motion and also amend the committee recommendation to be in sync with what we already passed as a House last week in the BPS, when we were considering the BPS, because we removed that reference to the 400 billion, and hence we'll be asking that we do the same. We remove reference to it, and we let that decision, we'll cross that bridge. We'll make that decision or cross that bridge when we actually get the estimates. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move, and I would wish to ask the Chair of Budget to second.
Chair of Budget.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second, and I want to confirm to this House that that matter came to our committee. We prosecuted those issues, and we were in agreement even when we were doing the BPS. So now it's in sync with the BPS. So with those very few remarks, I want to say that I second, and we are in concurrence with the amendments that have been proposed by the Majority Leader.
Well, honourable members, I therefore propose a question, is that the motion be amended, Roman 1, by deleting paragraph B, Roman 2, inserting the following new paragraph after paragraph C, being a new D, in deleting the lines, the ones in paragraph 18, in brackets, this should be consistent with the fiscal deficit of Kenya shillings 400 billion, or 3% of the GDP, whichever is lower. It's an amendment. Yeah. I put the question. For the amendment. Oh. So we discuss this as always. Honourable members, I therefore put the question, which is that the motion be amended in Roman 1 by deleting paragraph B, and Roman 2 by inserting the following new paragraph after paragraph C, being a D, in paragraph 18, deleting the following ones. that this should be, in brackets, this should be consistent with the fiscal deficit of Kenya shillings 400 billion or 3% of GDP, whichever is lower. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. As many of the opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Very well. So, honour members, the motion will be debated as amended. The next proposed amendment, which I think also intend to dispense with, is the motion, the amendment proposed by the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wa, member for Kikuyu constituency, who has written to me requesting that I allow the member for Dagoretti South, the Honorable Kiari KJ Waweru, to move on his behalf. I have approved that request. Honorable Kiari.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it is true I am holding brief for the Chairman Budget Committee Emeritus, the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wa, who happens to be my neighbor. And Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wa gives notice that he wishes to move the following amendments to the motion on the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the medium-term debt management strategy for the financial year 2022-2023. Mr. Speaker, the amendment is that the motion be amended by inserting the following new paragraph: that the House notes that the approval of the 2022-2023 budget policy statement and the 2022-2023 medium-term debt management strategy is not to be construed to imply the approval of the increase of the national debt limit, which is now standing at 9 trillion Kenya shillings, as stipulated under legal notice number 155 on the Public Finance Management Act number 18 of 2012. Mr. Speaker, the amendment that the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wa is seeking to move is simple, Mr. Speaker, because it is seeking to buttress and in fact to emphasize and bring to the attention of this House and knowledge of this House that we already know that should we approve this BPS and the debt management strategy, it shall not be construed to be an approval to exceed our debt ceiling of 9 trillion Kenya shillings that is stipulated in the PFM Act, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, according to the government statistics that everyone is privy to, as of December last year, the debt reported by the National Treasury and the CBK was at around 8.2 trillion Kenya shillings. Mr. Speaker, it is further expected that by end of June 2022, it is estimated that this figure is going to hit the 8.6 trillion mark, Mr. Speaker. And this is information that is even available at the Parliamentary Budget Office. Mr. Speaker, it so then says that the fiscal space available between from the 1st of July is only 400 billion Kenya shillings. So, Mr. Speaker, this proposal is simply pricking the conscience of this House, Mr. Speaker, that despite the House having approved the amended motion, which was brought here by the majority leader, that the committee report, that the majority leader was amending what the committee had proposed, that we stay within the 400 billion space, Mr. Speaker, that even as we do so, we shall not be trying to increase the debt ceiling using a backdoor, Mr. Speaker. What this means is that with our debt ceiling being approved at 9 trillion, the fiscal space available for budgeting should still stay at the 4 billion mark, Mr. Speaker. In their report, the committee did appreciate these facts, with the BPS moved in its original form before it was amended, and that is why the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wa is seeking to bring to the attention of this House that even with us moving the BPS as amended, and even with the medium-term debt management strategy, we are not attempting to increase the debt ceiling in any way, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, this amendment that the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah is moving is actually an insurance that this House is taking. But also being an insurance, it's also an assurance that we're giving to the public, Mr. Speaker, that this House does understand that the work of pushing the budget ceiling is actually stipulated and provided for in delegated regulations that should be coming as a motion to this House through the Committee of Delegated Legislation. Mr. Speaker, it is clear to the minds of us who are in this House that anybody willing to increase the debt ceiling must come before this House and with a specific motion seek the approval of this House to increase the debt ceiling in the usual and legal and constitutional manner through the Delegated Legislation Committee, and the House shall consider such a motion on its merits or demerits, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, everybody in this country is worried about our debt levels. And Mr. Speaker, what we are trying to do is to make sure that nobody will come back here, either in April or in May, and tell us that the debt ceiling has been busted, Mr. Speaker, or that we have gone beyond the debt ceiling. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah was very keen to move this motion because, in his own words, he says that whenever a motion of this nature comes to this House in the recent times, there has been a semblance of incentives to people, Mr. Speaker, for them to pass some what he sees in his mind as illegal attempts at bringing matters through the back door. So, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah did want for me to rise and give this insurance to this House, and also an assurance to the people that we will not be expecting to see the debt ceiling increased by having the issue that was brought by the majority speaker, where he amended the original report.
Just a minute, Honorable Kiari, there is a point of order, but also to inform you there is no majority speaker.
Majority leader, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I've just listened very carefully on the pronouncement by my good brother here, talking about incentives being brought to this House to be able to change the debt ceilings. Can you please expound on that? I don't want to be part of that. Can you expand on that, please?
Well, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I am a very small man, Mr. Speaker. I have no capacity to threaten anyone, and I'm not even out here to threaten anyone but Mr. Speaker. But Mr. Speaker, my training is in journalism. And Mr. Speaker, I can tell you I am a man of means. I know what happens when there is a critical motion in this House, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, if the honorable member is keen to interrogate me on this matter, you know I'm a man of means. I could even produce photos, Mr. Speaker, of people making a beeline to certain offices, Mr. Speaker, after certain motions have been passed here, Mr. Speaker. And I, being an artist, can even produce photos, Mr. Speaker, photos of which I am ready to even appear before the Powers and Privileges Committee, Mr. Speaker, where I would even present evidence that there are such matters that do happen in this House, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I would wish that the honorable member would allow me to prosecute my point so that we can move on and do what it is that is needed to happen, Mr. Speaker. No. Mr. Speaker, I personally did witness such an incident last week, Mr. Speaker. So the honorable member must understand that I'm talking about something I know about,
Honorable
Mr. Speaker.
Please, Honorable Wanyonyi is not suspended. Honorable Wanyonyi.
Mr. Speaker, this House, in all due respect, we do not want to be told some people are being bribed here to be able to pass certain informations, particularly this budget, which is very, very important.
You know, the problem with you members is one. I thought if you pursue, he talked about incentives. I think that is where we should. What are these incentives?
Yes, that's what I want to know.
But now you seem to be now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Let him put it here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You do understand the drift of the matter that I'm trying to raise, Mr. Speaker. And I would not want this member to push me to be a bit more specific, to start talking about KEMSA incentives that have been pushed in this house and are making decisions be made in certain ways. Mr. Speaker, I can get more specific.
There's a point of order from the Chair of Budget.
Chair, the claim by my good friend preposterous, Honorable Speaker, is demeaning to this House, because when you say that members are getting incentives to vote in a certain way, Honorable Speaker, we are paid a salary and allowances to work in this Parliament. We don't need any other incentive to vote in one way or the other. And we have to make it very clear, if you are defeated in terms of numbers, Honorable Speaker, we were here when they were asking for a division. They could not even raise 30 members. If you are defeated on the numbers, kindly don't try to push the back, pass the back and say that there are incentives. I don't think there are any incentives. If people are queuing, people can queue for different reasons, and I don't understand why my good friend is making such serious claims which are not founded. Honorable Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the fact that they have accepted that they queue. Mr.
Speaker. But you see, is there anything wrong with the queuing? I thought you queue even at the airport. So if you queue at the airport to board your plane, if you are going traveling to some destination, but you see, the only Honorable Angwenyi, you are an old member, you know the rules. Please, if you want to make an intervention, just press your intervention button. There are very many members who have pressed their intervention buttons. Let me hear what. But you see, even as you raise this issue, you are not making any particular demand. What is it that you want the chair to do? So you are just Honorable Wanyonyi, on 2 occasions, he's just saying that something has been said. So can I teach you what you should have said? That the member should substantiate or withdraw. Now, you never said anything like that. So I'm just seeing people saying, getting agitated. But, Honorable Abdul Samad, I see you also put an intervention.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you rightfully put it, and as a 2-time member, I think it is only right, Mr. Speaker. More so, this is a house that has representatives who are elected. More so, Mr. Speaker, when the honorable member, and he needs to explain whether he's speaking on behalf of Honorable Ichung'wah or he's speaking on his own behalf. Failure for him to substantiate that there are any forms of incentives, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the words incentives itself demeans the honor of being called a member of parliament. So unless he substantiates, it is only right that the honorable member does the honorable thing by withdrawing and profusely apologizing to the millions of Kenyans who are listening to him. It is totally wrong and out of order. And Mr. Speaker, I heard something else. And this is why it even goes, and I think the problem is that he has not read what is actually on the order papers. He mentioned on people being given incentives like they were given during the KEMSA report. As far as I know, Mr. Speaker, and it's on record, and I'm willing, the same way he mentioned the word the KEMSA report, Mr. Speaker, I chair the Public Investments Committee, Mr. Speaker. I just gave a notice of motion last week where we renewed because of the fact that we had just come back from a short recess, Mr. Speaker. So it's only right. If we want to politicize this house, it is very easy. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, if he wants to go on to the point that Honorable Ichung'wah wants to say, it is the same words that the leader of majority has rightfully said, that this particular motion that we are passing has got nothing to do with confirming or affirming that the country's debt ceiling is being increased. The leader of majority even, and I can actually say, has taught the honorable member that there are ways and means at which government can be able to bring in motions or anything, whether it is through the Public Finance Management Act or any other way, Mr. Speaker, for us to be able to increase that ceiling. And if it is an issue of just trying to politicize matters, Mr. Speaker, as you rightfully put it, we have public platforms and dioceses out there, you know, and if they cannot be able to raise their numbers...
So what is your...
He needs to withdraw, Mr. Speaker, or substantiate, and not just withdraw. And I'm saying that, Mr. Speaker, I can actually say it with a lot of confidence and anything else. They're saying this because some of these members are looking for positions of deputy president and other positions, and they're willing really, really hard to be able to... Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, he needs to either substantiate, failure for him to substantiate, and he said there is a journalist of high repute, he's got photos or whatever it is, he needs to substantiate. Failure for him to substantiate, Mr. Speaker, you have to declare him out of order, and if need be as well, this particular amendment, whether it is going to be ruled someone else to bring this amendment, or we just vote onto this, and he's had his bonga points.
Who are you informing? No, don't. Honorable Kiarie, you've been challenged by the member from Vita to either substantiate... No, don't raise your hand, Honorable Didi Nyoro. It is not you. It is the Honorable Kiarie who made the allegation. And Honorable Didi Nyoro, you don't just raise your hand and then you start speaking on your phone when I thought, surely, I said degenerated to this. No, there's nobody. The Honorable Kiarie is the one who has the floor. He's the one who uttered those words. Please respond.
Mr. Speaker, it's the English who say that the guilty are always afraid. Mr. Speaker, a great man by the name of Leo Muhammad once said that if a stone is thrown among a pack of dogs, the one that barks loudest is the one that has been hit by that stone, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I too am a member of this House, and I do stand for the dignity of this House, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Kiarie,
yes.
Are you willing to substantiate?
That's what I'm getting to, Mr. Speaker.
No, please. That is not substantiation. Please, and let me just remind you. Yes. Look at your standing order number 107, please. Let's not now. I will not allow you to use words that are going to be unparliamentary. So please, just substantiate. If you are not able to, withdraw and apologize. There cannot be a point of where did you learn these things? Please, you're almost finishing 5 years and somebody is being told to substantiate. You're raising your hand upon Honorable Didi Nyoro saying point of order. Where on earth? Certainly not under my watch. Honorable Kiarie, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, my claim, which I would be ready to substantiate, was that there are times when critical matters do come here, and incentives decide how the matter is decided, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Kiarie, substantiate.
I say, and the charge...
We are on this motion.
Yes,
please.
The charge from the Honorable Abdul Somad is actually a false charge, Mr. Speaker. There is no way I referred to the KEMSA report. In fact, what I said is that KEMSA incentives have been, my claim was that there are KEMSA incentives that are influencing decisions in this House, Mr. Speaker. And that is the claim that I am with.
Honorable Kiarie, you use the ones incentives, even much earlier than before you refer to KEMSA. So, what are those incentives? That is what you are required to substantiate. If you are not able to, you just withdraw and apologize to the House. This is very simple.
Mr. Speaker, I am well guided, and my claim was that, Mr. Speaker, I, as a journalist, have witnessed situations where a motion is passed here, and we see people making a beeline for certain offices in this building, Mr. Speaker, where the incentives, which I referred to as KEMSA incentives, do influence how decisions are made, Mr. Speaker. And I further went on to say that I am a journalist.
Honorable Kerry, I've given you now 2 opportunities to substantiate what incentives you refer to. Talking about beeline or others is not substantiation. Remember, it is within my province to determine whether you have actually substantiated. If I determine that you haven't, Honorable Kiari, I'll proceed to make the next decision. So please, for the last time, if you are not able to substantiate the issue of incentives, it is not enough to tell me that you have taken photographs. No, I'm not interested in photographs now. Photographs will not show that. They will not show that is photograph an incentive. Surely, Honorable Kerry, I'm sure you have been taking very many photographs, not to incentivize you to do anything.
Mr. Speaker, the word incentive, as I understand it, in the English language, means that a thing that motivates or encourages someone to do something, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, if a photo of people queuing to receive an incentive is not substantiation enough, Mr. Speaker, I am willing to appear before any fitting committee of this House, including the Committee of Powers and Privileges, to present evidence that incentives are actually influencing decisions in this House, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, if that itself is not enough, then I am willing to withdraw, Mr. Speaker. If that itself, if I cannot get an opportunity to appear before such a committee, then Mr. Speaker, I will withdraw and apologize, because, Mr. Speaker, the bigger issue is the issue of debt, Mr. Speaker. The issue of debt in this country as we speak, Mr. Speaker, is a thorn in the flesh, and being a thorn in the flesh of the people of Kenya, the people of Kenya are willing to know, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Kerry, yes. Honorable Kerry, so that, no, Honorable Sankok, the English grammar is quite easy to many of us, to some of us. To some of us. The Honorable Kerry said, if he is willing, but he has not said he has withdrawn. No, Honorable Sankok, please, you cannot, you are looking this way. Just look the front. So that, because when you turn, you don't seem to hear what he is saying. He is saying he is willing. If he is not going to be given a chance to appear, what he is willing. So these conditions have been given to who? If what? Honorable Kiarie, so that we can proceed with this matter. Just do the simple thing. Withdraw and apologize to the House.
Mr. Speaker, I do benefit greatly from guidance from you, Mr. Speaker, and Mr. Speaker, I do withdraw and apologize, Mr. Speaker. Absolutely. And I'm doing so, Mr. Speaker, because even my attempt at bringing this to light was actually in the protection of the dignity of this House, Mr. Speaker. So that we are not...
Honorable Kiari,
yes.
You have withdrawn and apologized.
Yes.
That is enough. Do you now beg to move your amendments?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, before I was rudely interrupted, Mr. Speaker, I was making the point that, Mr. Speaker, I was making the point that the debt issue in this country is a mega issue. It's a concern, Mr. Speaker. And the amendment that has been moved by the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah is seeking to ensure that we all understand that the passing of the BPS and the MTDS in the format that it is should never be misconstrued to be an effort by this House to increase the debt ceiling of this country through the back door, Mr. Speaker. Kenyans are concerned that we shall soon be approaching the 8.6 trillion mark on debt, Mr. Speaker. So the moment we amend the committee report from the 400 billion space that we had and push it to 846, practically, Mr. Speaker, what we would have been doing is illegally and unconstitutionally increasing the debt ceiling, not following the rules that are given, Mr. Speaker, whereby such a motion ought to have come to this House through the delegated legislation committee as a substantive motion on its own, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, my business here today was very simple. My neighbor, the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, called me at 2 a.m. Washington, D.C. time to make sure that his amendment is moved on the floor of this House because his concern is great for the hustlers of this country, Mr. Speaker.
Which you have ably done, Honorable Kiari. Yes. But if you look at again the standing order number 107, if you become tediously repetitive, it is also disorder. So when you say one thing repeatedly, in fact, sometimes I can say to the annoyance of some of your colleagues, because you are repeating the same thing. I thought you have done quite well. In fact, you started off very, very well until you veered off into other areas. Now, can you conclude and tell us who is going to second you?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I do have a stopwatch here in my possession, and I've been stopping at every moment and checking on my minutes, Mr. Speaker, because I do understand the time I've been provided for to move this. And, Mr. Speaker, my attempt was to move that the motion that was moved by the chairman of Budget Committee be amended by inserting the following new paragraph that is appearing on the order paper. Yes. And, Mr. Speaker, I do move and ask the Honorable Morogara to second. Yeah.
Point of order, which point of order? What's your point of order, Honorable Kajwang? Honorable Kajwang, point of order?
Mr. Speaker, sometimes I don't know, maybe it's because we are on the last end of this session. But a lot of things are happening until I wonder, how did we do orientation? Something happened last week, and it has been repeated this week, that a member can challenge the speaker. Let's do anything we want to do on the floor. But for heaven's sake, let's not be in a position that we think or compass that we can argue with the speaker. Seriously. Because you see, last week it was the same thing that played out. Someone is held to be out of order and is told do A, B, C, D or 107 to follow. And arguments ensue. Today, Mr. Speaker, the substantive speaker is on the seat saying do A, B, C, D, and we are spending another 40 minutes on arguments. This is bringing this House to disrepute. I wouldn't mind any other issue out of order on the plenary. But to argue with the speaker, it is only in this session that I've seen anything like this, Mr. Speaker.
You don't want it to be seconded? Before it is seconded? I think for the motion it will be good, procedurally it will be good. If it is on the motion, it will be, because it's already been removed, it will be better that then you can raise your point after it has been seconded or has been proposed. Yeah. Honorable Morugara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the proposed amendment, the motion on the proposed amendment, and without having to repeat or reproduce the words that are on the order paper, the proposed amendment really is to try and tighten up our position and is brought to the House out of what is known as abundant caution. The reason why we have to caution ourselves and caution the country is due to the fact that there has already been a misconstruction out there that this House has already increased the debt ceiling. If you read the press immediately after we passed the budget policy statement, everybody was convinced we had actually increased the debt ceiling. That is not true, and nothing can be far from the truth than a statement to that effect. So as to caution ourselves and ensure that we all understand what we passed, we have therefore proposed out of abundant caution to bring this particular proposal and clarify to the country that we are still at 9 trillion shillings debt ceiling, not a shilling more, and it cannot be unless we are able to follow the Constitution and also follow the law as set out in the Public Finance Management Act. The provisions of the Act are that the debt ceiling is to come under a statutory instrument, whether an order or a regulation stating that this House does approve the increment of the debt in the debt ceiling. Without that, it cannot be otherwise, and therefore this proposed amendment is timely, and we should all actually back it because it's purely to ensure we and the country are well informed. With those remarks, I beg to second.
Honourable members, I propose the question, which is that the motion be amended further by inserting the following new paragraph immediately after paragraph B. So it's proposed to be BA. Although, just for information of members, paragraph B has already been deleted by the amendment that we have, which has been carried. It reads that this House notes. This amendment is for, it just calls the House to note. This House notes that the approval of the 2022-2023 budget policy statement and the 2022-2023 medium-term debt management strategy is not to be construed to imply the approval of the increase of the national debt limit in brackets Kenya shillings 9 trillion as stipulated under legal notice number 155 on the Public Finance Management Act number 18 of 2012. Leader Majority wishes to contribute.
Yes, Honorable Speaker, I rise to oppose this amendment on a couple of issues. One, it's speculative in nature. I've just spent a lot of time here explaining how we will determine whether there is a budget deficit and the amount of that when we receive the estimate. And the House agreed with me. The second thing is superfluous. We are basically stating the obvious. We are telling ourselves as a House that we will note that Treasury will not bring us here, that what we've done should not be construed to be some increase in the debt ceiling. It actually amounts to casting aspersions on ourselves, on this House, that we actually don't know what we are doing. That's what the amendment is trying to do by being brought here, that this House does not seem to understand or to know what we are doing, that we could actually be indirectly increasing the debt ceiling, and we need one of our own members to remind ourselves that we need to note that what we have done should not be construed to be an increase. It's actually an insult to this House to actually end up with something like this. And it amounts, and I'm sure the Honorable Kerry himself has used these words in our discussion. We are basically like, the night nurse waking up a patient to tell them to take sleeping pills. You know, we are basically stating the obvious, and hence it's a waste of our time. It may be good politically out there to talk about people who are confused. They actually don't understand when we do decisions here in the House. We don't legislate in vain. We don't put words on paper just for purposes of people listening and thinking that the House did this thing, so it did not imply that. That's subject to interpretation out there. So for Honorable Kerry and Kimani Ichung'wah to come and try to interpret what we even did and remind ourselves that based on what you did, people out there should not think that this House did ABCD. You know, this is totally ridiculous to use the list, and hence we should not be wasting a lot of time. Let's just remove this from our records by deleting this, by objecting to it, by defeating this amendment, because it is very obvious that this House will not approve estimates that go beyond the debt ceiling. We don't need to be reminded of that. That's our duty. We are bound by our Constitution, and I think the whole motion was brought in more for the cameras than for actually intending for it to be actually included within the report. I beg to oppose.
Well, but I already had given an indication that I would be, even though the Honorable Leader of Majority has indicated that when you give a patient sleeping pills, you don't caution them that this is not cure for malaria. Let me hear the Honorable Dr. Makali Mulu, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Actually, Honorable Speaker, the reason why we even wanted to raise a matter before the motion was seconded is because, Honorable Speaker, I thought we were wasting the House's time. Because, Honorable Speaker, just listen to me. Listen to me. Honorable Speaker, if you listened very carefully to the amendment by the Majority Leader, the issue KK is raising, Honorable KK, is the same issue which was being addressed by the amendment by the Majority Leader. And actually, I sought to get your guidance, Honorable Speaker, because I understand Honorable KK, he conveys he's a communication expert. I'm sure, MKJ, Honorable Speaker, if it was Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah moving this thing himself, and he had listened to the Majority Leader, he would have withdrawn this amendment. Because the matter was already addressed. So even though it looks like we are going to say no to it, but to me, I don't really, it is already addressed by what the Majority Leader, the amendment by the Majority Leader, which as a House, we have approved, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I just wanted to make that point clear. Thank you.
Can I get a sense of the House? I put the question, honorable members, let me get the sense of the House. By putting the question, that I put the question. So I put the question, that I put the question. Will as many as that opinion say aye? As many as counter opinion say nay? So one of members, the ayes have it. I therefore proceed to put the question. I proceed to put the question that the motion be amended by inserting the following new paragraph immediately after paragraph B, being BA, that this House notes that the approval of the 2022-2023 budget policy statements and the 2022-2023 medium-term debt management strategy is not to be construed to imply the approval of the increase of the national debt limits, in brackets 9 trillion shillings, as stipulated under legal notice number 155 on the Public Finance Management Act number 18 of 2012. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of counter opinion say nay? The nays have it. The nays have it. So the amendment is defeated. So we go. Did I hear somebody talk about a division? No, you don't sit and say shout that you want a division. you rise in your place and claim for it. We will not, I don't think whether the House intends to carry out another orientation at this late point in the life of the 12th Parliament. So the motion continues, debate on the motion continues as amended. Very well. I'll now go back to the list, not the interventions. Go to the honorary list. The Honorable Sakwa Bunyas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I restrict my discussion on this particular point because we have a substantive bill before the House that takes care of all of these things that have been raised. I think one thing I'm happy with, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that there's an increased awareness, not only in the public but also in this House, that the consequences of what we approve need now to be looked at very carefully, particularly in respect of the levels of deficit. Forget breaching or not breaching the debt ceiling, but even the levels of deficits themselves have become a matter of concern. And I think that's a very great achievement. We have gotten where we have because within the debt ceilings, we have allowed the debt stock to rise consequentially. But now that we reached the debt ceiling, I think we are rightly now debating the merits of what it might be. But I guess there's going to be a lot more to say when the request for the ceiling going above 9 trillion comes up, because it will come up. It's coming soon. That's with certainty. So I see that this is a dry run for what those arguments might turn out to be. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think that if we go to a point of great soberness and we allow discussions around these matters of debt, ceiling or no ceiling, because sometimes it's not a ceiling matter, it's a question of the deficit level, we would help to manage this economy. Parliament would help to add to the efforts, whatever those efforts are, of the executive to run this economy. It's obvious that the Parliament's active participation and discussion and decision would be able to guide the executive itself, but would also contribute to sound economic management. The debt is like a thermometer. It tells you many, many, many things. There are issues, for example, without rolling over into the debate for tomorrow, that we should think about deeply. We talk about strengthening domestic markets, which is something that has been mentioned by the chair of the Budget Committee. There are issues on how debt is raised on domestic market. Who are the ones that give that debt? And how is it paid? How is it paid? And so on. There are many issues. There are governance issues in there too. So I do hope that we'll continue this spirit of inquisitiveness and alertness when the substantive bill comes up in the hopefully the third reading, if we go beyond the bill tomorrow. So those few remarks I have, being a member of the committee, I do not want to open up any new issues on this. I support.
For Runyenjes. Muchangi, you have the floor. Honorable Jiru Muchangi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Order, members, order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I intend to speak on the next matter, Madam Speaker.
Very well. Your request is to speak on the next matter. Can I have the member with that for Honorable Gichimu Githinki? Next on my request list, the Honorable Gichimu Githinki.
Madam Speaker,
I'm on queue for the next order, that is the coffee bill.
The coffee bill. With that, let me hear the member 001, Honorable Ole Sankok David.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I rise to support this motion, but I would like to caution this House that debt is a cancer that will eat our future, and that Kenyans are overburdened by this debt that we borrow left and right and don't invest wisely, because those sitting in the apex are dynasty who have never known how to invest. They know how to ingest. Hawajui kutafuta, wanajua kutafuna. Honorable Speaker, in quotes. So, Honorable Speaker, why we are not getting value for our money?
Honorable Sankok, for your guidance.
Yes, Honorable Speaker.
You have been this house for the longest time.
Yes, Honorable
and for
Speaker.
long.
Yes,
you
Honorable.
cannot use two language at once.
Yes.
If you start debating in English,
Yes, Honorable.
please do it to the end. I wish I should not be the one directing you to this matter. If you start in Kiswahili, do it to the end. For this matter, you are out of order. You are using bad language, but
Thank you.
Please carry on.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Even though I didn't get your attention because I had said wanajua kutafuna hawajui kutafuta, and then I put in quotes. You know, I put it on the air in quotes. So, Honorable Speaker,
you never did it, Honorable Sankok.
Yes,
Honorable Sankok, you are out of order.
Thank you, Honorable
You
Speaker.
are out of order.
Accepted.
Carry on.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I think you should protect me from Honorable Gedi Fatuma. She have just said that I don't have manners, and if there is somebody who don't have manners, it is well known, it is Fatuma Gedi. She is on record, so you should actually try to avoid. You know, for us as pastoralists, we rarely argue with women. Honorable Speaker.
Order.
For respect, we respect women. We don't argue with them.
Order. Now you are welcome. Let me hear Honorable Gedi. Order. Which women?
Madam
which
Speaker.
women do you argue with?
Madam Speaker, is Honorable Sankok in order to call me a woman, because I'm not a woman, I'm a leader, and I'm a honorable member who have been elected by the people of Wajir. Secondly, he said, I told him, I said he has no manners. Can he substantiate, Madam Speaker? Because I've not told him that. And he should stop lying. He should stop lying, because that is his behavior, Madam Speaker. Yeah. Can he substantiate, Madam Speaker, and prove that indeed I told him he had no manners? Because I didn't say those words.
Honorable
And it is 2 years more.
The only person, or the only anybody in the house who should address the speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable
Do
Speaker.
not address honorable member.
Yes. Okay. But Honorable Speaker,
From where I am,
I
you're
did
out
not.
of order.
I did not call her a woman. I said we don't argue with women from my culture because we respect them, because they are our mothers, they are our sisters.
Order.
With our wives,
This
we
house,
respect
order.
them.
Can you receive your seat first? Honorable Sankok, for your direction and information. You are out of order. In this house, we elect both men and women, disabled. So any woman will be in this house. A disabled person will be in this house. A man and a woman will be in this house. I'm just trying to be soft spoken to you. So please, you are out of order to address Honorable Gedi. That where you come from, we come from different places, different regions. So that's the voice of your region. We respect it, but this house has members from different women. and different regions. And I'm sure you have a woman in your house. Please carry on and be in order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. From where we came from, we still respect women so much because they are our wives, they are our mothers, they are our sisters. And I did not call any honorable member a woman. And if they want us to call them men, well and good. So, Honorable Speaker, I'm saying increasing the debt ceiling is really a burden to the Kenyan citizen. And we should be wary of Kenyan citizens who are now circulating what we call hashtag lower food prices. And you can trace this increase in food prices to the burden of debt that we have in this country. So, Honorable Speaker, as we pass these bills, I implore upon our leadership in the House, led by the majority leader, that let us be sensitive to Kenyans. Let us listen to the cry of Kenyans. They are sleeping hungry, they are sleeping without food, they are unable to pay rent, they are unable to pay school fees. Let us be sensitive to them. I do support.
Can I have the member for Kitui Central, the Honorable Dr. Makali Molu?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker.
You spoke to this?
Yeah.
Very well. If you never spoke to this, you have the floor. Yes?
I have not. I'm just, the other one was point of order, where I was seeking clarification. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this important motion, the motion on medium-term public debt management strategy. This is a very important document, Honorable Speaker, basically because as a country, we are operating in an environment where we are spending more than we are able to generate locally. So this document becomes very important, and if you read through it, Honorable Speaker, it's a 3-year medium plan. That is, the expenditure is projected for the next 3 years, and it indicates what level should be. And Honorable Speaker, the reason why it was important the majority leader moves his amendment and change the committee report is because in the committee report we had actually put specific figures and also percentage. But what is critical to note, Honorable Speaker, is that whatever figures are in the budget committee report and whatever figures are in this document and whatever figures were in the BPS were all projections. As at now, Honorable Speaker, the officially reported public debt in the country is 8.2 trillion. This House, in our own wisdom, did put the ceiling at 9 trillion. There's a projection to borrow additional 400 billion by June, and that is a projection. So the reason why it was very important that we do away with the figure of 400 billion, Honorable Speaker, is because we might get to June 30th and we may not have borrowed the projected 400. If we would have borrowed only additional 200 billion, then it means there will still be a room, what I will call a leg room of about 600 billion. And to me, that's why it's very important that as a House, we have a law, an existing law saying the debt ceiling is pegged at 9 trillion. And then leave the executive to do their work of borrowing so long as they don't exceed that ceiling of 9 trillion. And that's why we were saying the other day, Honorable Speaker, the executive has a number of options. They can do quite a number of issues. The first one, Honorable Speaker, the executive can become more aggressive and collect more revenue. That means if they collect more revenue, then they can still operate within the ceiling of 9 trillion. The second option is whereby the executive might decide, as they bring their annual estimates, they drop some programs and projects and defer them to the next financial year, implying they'll have created some room to be within the 9 trillion. The other important option, which the executive can do, the executive might also decide, Honorable Speaker, to engage on what we call cost cutting or cost saving or expenditure reduction, where they go through through the budget, look at the projected recurring budget, and see where areas where they can make savings. Honorable Speaker, you analyze the budget of the government. There's a lot of money on training, a lot of money on entertainment, a lot of money on areas where you could easily save without really anybody getting in the country getting hurt. And so what we are saying, Honorable Speaker, the work of deciding how much what to do to reduce borrowing is the work of the executive. It's not the work of this parliament. That's why we are saying for us what we should be keen on is let's agree as we move through the future, we'll ensure that the ceiling does not go beyond 9 trillion. And where it goes beyond 9 trillion, then we would expect a motion which proposes amendment to the ceiling, which this House must also approve. So really, for me, Honorable Speaker, I support this, and I look forward to a situation where this House now becomes very keen on scrutinizing the annual budgets and whatever budget will come to us, so that the 9 trillion figure is not actually breached unless we have an amendment to the existing law. I support, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Very well. The Honorable Member, Honorable Makali Muli, support. May I have the member for Emuaya, representative of the people of Emuaya, and that is Honorable Milemba Omboko.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to make a few comments on this report on the medium-term debt management and everything else that incorporates the issues of debt. One, Honorable Speaker, I want to appreciate even the earlier debate we had on the amendments which brought light to the sensitivity of the Kenyans and the people, that we are now very conscious about debt because it's in the public domain, and that every Kenyan is conscious that possibly we should manage the debt ceiling at the same time that we should manage how we borrow and even how we use the money we borrow, so that this borrowing does not hinder or in fact infect or affect the economic recovery of this country, having come from the COVID pandemic. Honorable Speaker, I wish to say that this report talks about relieving the expensive debts in favor of cheaper debts. This is very good, because we know and we are aware that some of the many debts that we have are very expensive debts, having been borrowed from institutions that otherwise do not give favorable terms in terms of the rates and interest that are paid on these particular debts. And therefore, that is the way this country needs to go, so that we go back to the old regime where we would borrow from the World Bank, would borrow from the IMF, possibly borrow from the London Club and the Paris Club, as it were, because these are known lenders internationally which do not charge interests that are very high. And I love this coming from this particular report, that we shall be able to relieve those expensive debts and replace them with cheaper debts and even possibly elongate the time that we shall pay them. Honorable Speaker, we know of countries in history that did borrow and ended up over borrowing and were auctioned by those who had given them the money. The very earliest, Honorable Speaker, was the leader of Egypt called Khedive Ismail, who ended up auctioning Egypt as a country. But in the recent history now and circumstances, we have Greece, which lost its internal independence because of extreme borrowing. Honorable Speaker, this report also talks about reduction of the cost and risk of debt, which I want to support, so that we don't put our country on wire because of the high debt. Honorable Speaker, this report talked about the need to consider the present generation and also consider the future generation while borrowing. This is very important and is marked in the Constitution, that as we do the borrowing, we should not do it recklessly, so that we shall leave those who will live in future with such a higher debt while we'll have gone away. And therefore, this is something we need to emphasize, because as it stands today, those young Kenyans being born and those living have a very high debt of over 250,000 that they will have to pay. It's very important that those of us who are now borrowing now consider those who will live in future, so that they are able to also live in a better Kenya. Finally, Honorable Speaker, this report talked about consideration of foreign debt versus local borrowing. I would wish to caution that as we do the local borrowing, we should do it in a manner that we don't make the local banks stop giving Kenyans loans. We need to go back to the economics of Mwai Kibaki, who actually made very many Kenyans access loans, teachers in particular and other workers of this country. The borrowing should not be done in such a way that the government is not doing all the borrowing locally so that the local Mwananchi cannot get facilities. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this chance, and I support.
Very well. Let me have the Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, member for Daragwa, for debate. Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, Daragwa, for debate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would want to, I don't know whether contribution or point of order. Point of order.
You're in my request list.
I wanted to go on a point of order, number 95, that what we have, Madam Speaker, but let me just make my contribution. I see protestation coming from my senior, Mr. Nyikal.
Record, you are making your contribution.
Thank you. I want to support the motion, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, and say that it is important that when we have motions of this nature, that we avoid, even if we want to have populist positions, it is important that we avoid propagating lies from the floor of the House, using this opportunity as a way of pushing a propaganda. This has been done for the last 4.5 years. Kenyans has been misled. Kenyans have been lied to. And Madam Speaker, the motions that are before us, when you talk about money issues and raising the debt ceiling with a lie, it actually informs the public the long way. It is true that Kenyans have a problem because of the high food prices that are there. The government has made its own intervention measures, and it is important that we continue having interventions that can help the public, but we avoid using this for populism reasons. And I want to say that we have been here before, and those who have chosen to go the populist route find it very short in Parliament. You exit very quickly because people get to know of how quickly you tell lies. But Madam Speaker, I want to support the motion and ask that we approve it. It is a well thought out thing. We want to thank the Budget Committee for the work that they have done. And of course, we are waiting for the other papers that are going to bring so that we can make better contributions on these issues. I support, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Very well, you support. Can I have the member for Seme, the Honorable Nyikal Wambura, next on my request list?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, I rise to support this motion. And before I go into the merits and the merit of debt, I want to comment about the amendments. The amendment that was brought by the leader of majority, I also support that amendment, except I wanted to make one point, that instead of basically removing that first line of being of 400 billion, it should have been probably better as a policy statement that this should be consistent with the deficit, fiscal deficit determined at the time of the estimate, budget estimate. In that case, it will then be a policy statement, and we remove figures. It's actually not safe to have figures when you are making policy statements because it removes. As regards the amendment about the debt ceiling, Madam Speaker, I would say that it's not really fair when we are dealing with issues that are in black and white to actually purposely misinterpret them so that we create an impression and then even go on to say that those impressions are in the press. The press will always say anything. if you look at the committee observations on the report itself, observation number 3, actually that observation was clearly cognizant of the fact that there is need not to tamper with the debt ceiling. And what it was recommending is that actually the fiscal deficit be brought down. So how do we say that passing this motion would actually imply that we have actually increased the debt ceiling? And that was exactly the same argument last time when we were discussing the budget policy statement. Madam Speaker, I just wanted to raise that. Having said that, Madam Speaker, I further support this because this meets the requirement that has always been there, that the budget policy statement should come with the debt strategy, the medium-term debt strategy. And Madam Speaker, this is so important because we need to keep track of our debts. And the only way to do that is that every year when we are starting the budget policy statement, we must look at what are our debts, how have they been used, and what fiscal space is this leaving us. Because, Madam Speaker, development must take place and debt is always important for development. However, it is important to have a clear balance between the debts and service provision and the general well-being of the country. And I think that is what this medium-term debt strategy is meant to do. It actually brings to us the prudent use of loans. We know we have taken loans and sometimes we have not got the results that we needed. So, Madam Speaker, even if you look at the observations of the committee, you find that the committee was quite, the report of the committee is quite conscious of the need to sustain our debt at a sustainable level. They even come out and clearly say that between domestic borrowing and foreign borrowing, there is definitely again a clear margin to be looked at, because you can crowd out domestic borrowing. And so in looking at this report, Madam Speaker, I find that this is the thing that we have done for the first time, and it must be, as the law requires, something we do every time we are having the budget policy statement. It's a good start that we maintained. But I once again say, actually, we should not have speculation as a basis of a discussion and then saying that is what the press will say, whatever they want anytime. Well, we go by the facts and the letter of the statement as in the documents that we have. With that, Madam Speaker, I support.
Very well, you support. The next on my request list for contribution is the Honorable Member representing the people of Suban North, Honorable Odhiambo Akothi. Millie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Madam Speaker, I want to state that I support the motion on the medium-term debt management strategy for financial year 2022-2023 as amended. Madam Speaker, even in supporting, I wish to state at the onset that I don't agree with Honorable Sankok when he says that debt is a cancer. Debt is not a cancer, because even the bigger nations have debts, and that's how they manage. The challenge, the cancer, is how we manage our debt. And therefore, Madam Speaker, that is why we actually even have the debt management strategy here. And Madam Speaker, when we pass the Constitution and Article 201, it is very clear about enhanced role of Parliament so that we don't exceed effective debt management. Madam Speaker, under 201, it provides that there shall be openness and accountability in financial matters. It also provides that financial management shall be responsible and fiscal reporting shall be clear. Madam Speaker, one which is of very special interest to me as a child rights advocate is that the burden and benefits of the use of resources and public borrowing shall be shared equitably between present and future generations. Madam Speaker, And because of that, I'm very clear and very concerned about even when we are talking about exceeding debt ceilings. And I want to confirm what the majority leader has said, and indeed what we moved in the budget policy statement that was passed last week, that we have actually not approved as a house any new debt ceiling. So it is actually a fallacy, and I'm disappointed in my good friend John Kiarie that you come to the house and you are the one who creates an alarm and gives false information to the public, and then you purport to come here to bring a motion to correct your own misinformation to the public. I just want to indicate that as a budget committee, even with the amendments that we brought last week, we have shown concern to the Treasury, and we have told them that they need to note that the trajectory they are taking is of concern to us, and we therefore want them to know that they must take certain measures. One of the measures that we want them to take, Madam Speaker, is of course revenue. They need to look at enhanced revenue allocation or generation. They need to have effective resource allocation and cost cutting or saving measures. One of the very low-hanging fruits, Madam Speaker, is unnecessary trips such as the ones that have been taken by Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, and we are seeing that they've gone to visit governors in other parts of the world when Kenyans are crying of food, and in fact is the one who has generated that hashtag of food. And yet he can afford to fly business class, first class, and then with the same hand come here and say how people are dying of food. Madam Speaker, I want to indicate also that I'm also disappointed again with my good friend Honorable John Kiarie when he indicates that he's a journalist, and journalists try to get their facts correct just like lawyers. And so even in future, when you want to talk about incentives and such issues, be very clear about your facts, so that in terms of our populism, we don't actually bring into disrepute, especially the National Assembly. The kind of things that we say in this House, you hardly hear people talking about in the Senate. We shoot ourselves on the foot by actually making innuendos about our own selves. And you don't think when you do that the five fingers are pointing back at you. Remember the member who stood here with a cup of tea telling the media how he was bribed 5,000. He found himself in court and the courts were listening. He found himself jailed. So let us not set ourselves up with very careless statements against ourselves. With those few remarks, I support the motion as amended. Thank you.
You support the motion as amended. Very well, and thank you, Honorable Millie Odhiambo, for reminding the House. Honourable members, we are debating motion number 10. That is the report on the medium-term debt management strategy for the financial year 2022-2023 as amended. As amended. Can I have the Honourable Member for Kiharu constituency, the Honourable Ndindi Nyoro?
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I rise to oppose. Madam Speaker, from where I sit, and even in terms of the general population of the people of Kenya, I would not be comfortable sitting here to debate any bill that seeks to increase debt, Madam Speaker, and increase the burden to the Kenyan people. And I say so because, Madam Speaker, currently we are debating about increasing or giving a leeway for the Treasury to borrow in the tune of 400 billion Kenya shillings. But, Madam Speaker, currently even as we seek that we borrow 400 billion Kenya shillings, we are not even sure. No one in this House, Madam Speaker, is actually sure about the debt levels of this country. What we get is conflicting figures. When you go to the budget office here in Parliament, the figure you'll get is different from the figure you get from Treasury. And, Madam Speaker, even aggregating what is reported by the Central Bank of Kenya, and you add even to what we know definitely is also debt in terms of PPPs, in terms of guarantees and others, Madam Speaker, we are already in excess of the limit that we have set here in this Parliament. And therefore, Madam Speaker, our country needs financial prudence. Madam Speaker, we need physical prudence. The kind of figures we have been seeing, Madam Speaker, from the Treasury, and especially through the debate that we are having this afternoon, Madam Speaker, shows a lot of imprudence insofar as budgeting for this country is concerned. We have borrowed, Madam Speaker, actually over-borrowed beyond the limits set here in this parliament, and I was actually sitting here wondering the debate we had earlier, Madam Speaker, because we ought to be discussing, Madam Speaker, on how to punish those people who have made this country borrow beyond the legal limits, Madam Speaker. And therefore, Madam Speaker, as I oppose, it is good for us to know that currently every human being in this country, including a child born today in Kiharu, is born with a net borrowing of 255,000, Madam Speaker, around their neck. This is a person who have never used any public service, Madam Speaker, who is born already with debt, purportedly debt that has been channeled into making the livelihoods of people of Kenya better, Madam Speaker. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, the 255,000 per capita debt that every citizen of Kenya carries is not commensurate to the major development that we have seen, Madam Speaker, from this regime. Majority or most the big population or proportion of the monies we have borrowed, Madam Speaker, has been stolen. Even the 400 billion we are discussing today, more than half of it, judging by history, judging by the recent past, will be stolen. And therefore, Madam Speaker, that is why I cannot support anything that adds on the burden to the Kenyan people, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we need to be mindful of a few things, even as we talk about public debt. Number one is the issue of cost. The kind of money we borrow in this country, Madam Speaker, currently, even by eliminating the guarantees, we are just around 4 billion local borrowing, that is domestic, and 4 billion or thereabout, give or take, that is foreign borrowing. Madam Speaker, the cost at which we borrow is way beyond sustainability, Madam Speaker, and is way beyond sustainable levels. Madam Speaker, the 10-year yield here in Kenya, both given by the government of Kenya, is more than 10%, Madam Speaker. If you compare the same to other countries, it is much lower. The other thing, Madam Speaker, even as we talk about domestic borrowing, the over 4 billion Kenya shillings borrowed locally by the government of Kenya would actually be more appropriately allocated if it is in the pockets of the private sector. What we have been doing is crowding out.
Honorable member for Kiaru, we have a disruption on intervention by the honorable member for Kilome, the honorable Zambia Kithua. Honorable Zambia.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
Yes, I rise to support the motion. Pursuant to Article 95.
Are you on debate or you intervention?
I'm on intervention.
Very well, thank you.
Pursuant to Article 95, you can call the mover to reply.
Pursuant to Standing Order 95, you're intervening for us to call the mover to reply. Very well. Before that, please, can I allow, members, let me allow the Honorable Ndidi Nyoro to finish his debate, and then I will prosecute your intervention.
Madam Speaker, the kind of borrowing we have been doing domestically is crowding out our private sector. And that is why, Madam Speaker, even our revenue collection is not commensurate to our GDP figures, Madam Speaker.
That's positive sign of intent. Ball comes to Billy. Oh!